Well, hello and welcome to Split Informed and Split Smart. I'm just my second show, so I'm just still trying to get in the rhythm there. But Split Informed and Split Smart. I am your host, Carl Roberts, and I'm excited to be here on our second show, hosted on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are developing this show to help all couples, amicable or hostile, to more easily reach positive, equitable, and peaceful agreements in their divorce. It's my belief that everyone in their right mind wants peace, love, and equality in their post-divorce life. Even if they aren't in the right mind, even if they don't know it, somewhere deep down, they still want peace, love, and equality. I found this SplitSmart so that no one, regardless of emotional state or personality disorder, would be able to deny peace, love, and equality from the other or their children. Granted, it's easier said than done, but it's my life's mission to try to achieve this goal. At the end of the day, the single difference between a good and ugly divorce is simply the presence of a bad actor. That bad actor, it can be one or both, man or woman, lawyer or litigant. And usually bad actors are good people who have gotten tripped up by their emotions, bad advice from friends, family, or a lawyer. And more often than people realize, a personality disorder of being a narcissist or borderline or sociopath. So there's much more of a presence in our contested divorce, in those ugly divorces, than most people generally realize. With that said, I'm excited to introduce my host, or my guest, Liz Merrill. Liz is a high conflict mediator with Open Space Mediation in Fort Collins, Colorado. Liz, like a lot of us in the space, was inspired to do this work by her experience in her own divorce journey. Hello, Liz, and thank you for joining us on Split Informed and Split Smart. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Hi, Carl. Well, like you said, I am a mediator and I'm a divorce coach. I went through my own very difficult divorce years ago. And during that experience, I discovered that there were a lot of things lacking in the whole process. Education was a big part of it. Understanding how to move through the process, understanding what the process was, understanding the role that personality disorders and high conflict personalities played, and how ill-equipped in some ways our divorce courts are in supporting and recognizing and helping people move through that particular type of divorce. There are, I believe, I read somewhere 30% of divorces are considered high conflict, but the way that our system is set up, it's not really designed to recognize these things, and not all divorce professionals are able to recognize them. So I felt inspired to become a mediator. I felt inspired to help other people who are going through this journey. The thing that's very important to me is education and communication. So I work a lot with couples and individuals around communication and how you can make small changes to the way that you communicate. That can avoid escalating things.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I would certainly say that, certainly family court is not a place for people to divorce. It was poorly designed, a lot of the wrong incentives, everything bad about it. So we can spend days, months, and years just kind of going down in deep to that. But I think what's kind of important to me is you've had this experience, and you love this, you live this experience. And like me, you kind of realize, if this could happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And, there's just no reason for it to have happened to me. I'm a good person. I'm a good dad. All those fun things that, you can say what you want about me being a husband, but that doesn't really come into play.
Yeah.
And, how do we stop this madness? So that was what inspired me to get in this work, and it sounds like it's what got you into it. And so you, with your background, getting into the experience, then that had helped you kind of focus in on the education piece. So tell me a little bit more about the education piece. How to kind of going down that piece. How do you see education is? How do you define a high conflict divorce? Is every divorce that goes through the litigated process, is that a high conflict divorce? What's unique?
Sure.
What do high conflict divorces have in common?
Sure. So if a divorce is litigated, it's probably high conflict, because the fact of the matter is most divorces don't get to a place where it's in court, where the parties are are talking to a judge and having the judge make the decision for them. I believe that the court would prefer people sort these things outside of court. And that's often a possibility if there's not high conflict. If there are two parties that are getting divorced and there's not high conflict, they can generally work through stuff through mediation, through their attorneys if they have attorneys, or on their own, and get to a point where they have documentation, they have the parenting plan, they have their sworn financial statements, and they can take that to the court, and the court says, okay, that's fine, that looks good. A high conflict divorce is, generally speaking, a term that indicates that there's somebody in the divorce process, in the divorce, who who has some kind of personality disorder. And generally we're talking about narcissism or borderline personality disorder. And there are other personality disorders in this cluster B personality group, but those are the two that you most often see. And those are two personality disorders that really do not do well with conflict. And of course, divorce is about conflict, and it's about disagreement, and it just sort of escalates things. So you asked me about education. I find that a lot of times people who are going through divorce don't really understand the divorce process. They don't know what to expect. They don't know how, if they're in a high conflict divorce, they don't know how a person with a personality disorder is going to play out in the divorce process.
And I imagine people aren't even thinking about personality disorders at that point. I mean, so a woman is having a hard time with her husband. She may think, use a lot of different names for him, as well as a husband may use a lot of different names for her. Mm-hmm. And so they may not realize that there is that personality disorder. And then a lot of times the ones with the personality disorders are pointing the fingers at others, much less, not recognizing it in themselves. I mean, does any narcissist recognize that they're a narcissist?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It's very hard to diagnose, because somebody who's a narcissist, who is a narcissist, doesn't really think there's anything wrong with them, and they're not prone to going to a therapist and saying, "I think I'm a narcissist. Can you diagnose me?" That's not really going to happen. Yeah. So generally speaking, they don't recognize that in themselves, and they will often project onto the other party stuff that they're actually doing. Of course, everyone's heard the term gaslighting, and that sort of involves throwing a lot of confusing mixed messages, doing a lot of screwing around with people's perception, projecting an image of themselves externally that's very at odds with who they are inside. And all of these things together are amplified in the divorce process and make it difficult for the other party, make it difficult for the attorneys who are supporting either party, make it difficult for the mediators, certainly make it difficult for the judges who don't have the opportunity to really dig down deep into these couples' psyches and understand what's going on there.
And so key on one word, you use the word diagnose. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not aware of any that have been diagnosed in this high conflict divorce. I mean, if they think diagnosed as narcissists, and that can be diagnosed as borderlines, one side of that is going to certainly say he's a narcissist or she's a borderline. And there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and my experience is that divorce professionals don't really want to hear those words, and I wonder if that's why we use the term high conflict. There's a little bit of a backlash that people might experience if they go into an attorney's office and say, "My husband's a narcissist." That word is certainly overused, and people. Like you said, everybody knows a narcissist. Everybody's married to a narcissist. But if there's actual narcissistic personality traits, and if there's narcissistic abuse, that's really different than saying my husband is stuck up, or difficult. It's a whole thing, and that whole abuse piece is very challenging. And I get phone calls usually from women every day. Who are going through this, who are thinking about divorcing, or who aren't sure if they want to divorce yet. And my goal is to give people information so before they file, so that they can know what to expect, so they can understand what the process is going to look like, so they can start working on themselves and start disengaging and prepare themselves and their documentation before they even file. There are a lot of things that you can do to get ready that will make a huge impact as you go down that process of getting divorced. I often talk to people post-decree, after that has already happened, and because their divorce process missed a lot of opportunities to address these things early on, they're still struggling, or they're in the middle of a divorce and it's just escalated out of control. And it's my belief that if you can get on top of it very early on, learn some communication skills, learn about the trauma bond that people can be in when they're trying, and then they're trying to extract themselves from it, you're going to have a much higher chance of a successful, cheaper, shorter divorce.
Okay, so let's kind of change this a little bit. First of all, we had a question come in from a listener, David. How do you deal with a female narcissist who doesn't see her traits? The quick answer is, no narcissist or borderline sees their traits. No narcissist or borderline thinks they're the problem. But I think what another way of asking David's question is, how do we protect ourselves when we're dealing with that bad actor? What is it that we can do to protect ourselves? And my default is to kind of go to organization, but how do we best do it? Don't engage, all those other fun things. So help give us, our listeners, some ideas about how to deal with that.
Sure. I think a lot of people who are in relationships with people who have personality disorders really spend a lot of time trying to understand it, trying to explain to the other party, like, what's normal and why their behavior isn't working. And the fact of the matter is, if there's a borderline personality or narcissistic personality disorder, those people aren't interested in learning what's wrong with them or being told or understanding like what they're doing wrong. The best thing that you can do, in my opinion, is to start focusing on yourself, because you can change your decisions, you can change your behavior, you can change how you approach this relationship. You just give up on trying to change the other party, because that is not going to happen, and you're going to do a lot of wheel spinning. So Carl, I think you're right. I think recognizing your role in it, and starting to, and it doesn't have to be like a ginormous personality shift or behavioral shift, but just start looking at what's going on, looking at how you react, being intentional in your reactions, or not reacting, just sitting there. There's a professional in the field who I really admire, who says often, don't just do something, sit there. You know what I mean? It's sort of flipped around, but just sort of observe and pull back on your reacting, because the more you're able to do that, the other party might not like it, because a lot of times people with these personality disorders really like engagement and really like conflict, and they will react if you're like, no, I'm not going to go there. I have a boundary now. I have another boundary, and slowly start walking back. But ultimately, that's the best way to handle it, because like you said, Carl, you're going to need to start protecting yourself, especially if you're going to start going down the process of divorce and start managing your own behavior.
So whether you recognize yourself or the other as a borderline or narcissist, you know inherently you're going to kind of come into a difficult divorce, right? And so you know it's not going to be easy. Maybe part of this is societal, that society says, well, hey, we both got to lawyer up, and so we're trying to certainly change that paradigm. But when somebody just kind of starts down the process, intuitively they know that this is going to be difficult one way or another. Mm-hmm. And for me, going back to what my mission is, I don't think any one person should be able to deny peace, love, and equality from the other. And in that sense, so the first thing you got to do, good or bad divorce, narcissist or no narcissist, is start to get yourself organized. Yeah. And the more you kind of get yourself organized, you kind of list out your assets and debts. You can start to figure out what your marital estate is. Just having that list, and then starting to collect the supporting documents for that list is the easiest first step. And it's just taking that first step and it's starting to create that list of assets and debts to know where you're going to go. And if you're doing this early on, and if you're doing it from the perspective of and you hadn't told anybody yet, you hadn't told the other one yet, you're starting to set the stage for how to better be in control of how the process unfolds. If you're not unorganized, it's all willy-nilly, and you can just get lost in all this. But the more organized, especially like from the financials, just knowing what your financials are. Again, women kind of have the stereotype that they don't have as good a grip on the financials as they should have. They got to get a grip. Yeah. And so knowledge is power. And getting yourself organized from the financial perspective, getting a grip on that is huge, and it's easy to do. But if you delay and then try to do it kind of when you're in the throes of things, it's a whole different ballgame. Yeah, no, I agree. And and honestly, that piece around money is always going to be challenging. Our views around money, whether we're getting divorced or not, are, very deeply steeped in our emotions. And a lot of times we don't even realize it. But when we pull everything out and have a look at it, our financial landscape, it's stressful. It's stressful, like I said, for most people who aren't even going through divorce. So anything you can do to sort of take emotion out of it, just be streamlined is going to help emotionally. It's going to help financially, and it's really going to help the professionals who you're going to pull in to support you. And you want to do as much as you can to help those professionals so that they can do their job. Right. Yeah. So we're going to wrap up here real quick because we got a break coming, but I do want to just highlight that point. Narcissists are borderline or not. What all divorce professionals are trying to tell you to do is separate the emotions from the data. Try to figure out, try to separate the emotions out of this process. So to me, the three most important things to have a healthy divorce are: one is to control your emotions. Two is mutual respect. And three, to get organized. So help, both of those. Yeah. And so from all that perspective, real quickly, we need to take a break. So I want, first of all, Liz, would you let our listening audience know what your contact information is, please.
Yep. My business is called Open Space Mediation. You can Google it. You can go to www.openspacemediation.com, or you can email me at openspace.mediation@gmail.com.
All right. Well, very good. So this is Carl Roberts, host of the Split Informed and Split Smart divorce show. Excited to be here with Liz Merrill, our high conflict mediator. And we're talking about divorcing narcissists and borderlines on the WGSN-DB Going Solo network. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. This is Carl Roberts, host of Split Informed and Split Smart divorce show on the WGSN-DB Going Solo network, live internet TV talk show. Anyway, our guest today is Liz Merrill, high conflict mediator with Open Space Mediation in Fort Collins, Colorado. Thank you, Liz, and welcome back.
Thank you.
So real quick, I want to go back to a couple of things. So in layman's terms, what's the difference between a borderline and a narcissist?
Well, that is a really great question, because it's often very hard to separate them. They are both personality disorders that are in this cluster B personality disorder group. And they can appear very similarly, and they can also coexist with other diagnoses. You often see more men as narcissists. Borderline personalities, almost 75% female. So that's a thing that exists.
And that's more than just stereotypes, right? That's more than just stereotypes. I mean, that's kind of the reality of it, right?
Yeah. No, those are like numbers that psychologists have come up with from studies. And
we're all narcissists to some degree or another, aren't we?
Well, yeah. I mean, we can all have our moments of being conceited or thinking more of ourselves than regular people do. But it's an actual personality disorder, and as I said earlier, it's often very hard to pin these diagnoses down, either because the person who has it is not going to go in and get themselves diagnosed. But they're very similar in the way that they present their feelings and their thoughts and their reactions to things. They're definitely more intense. A borderline personality disorder is marked by a desperate fear of abandonment, and can be presented with clingy behavior and dependent. dependent behavior, impulsivity, emotional instability, feeling very depressed. A lot of borderline personality disordered people will attempt suicide. That's a really big hallmark of that. Being dissociative or being paranoid. If someone has a narcissistic personality disorder, it can have some of those traits. But when you're talking about somebody with that, you might be more looking at other hallmarks of this disorder, like just a huge lack of empathy for other people. Somebody who has very grandiose views about themselves, who likes to brag about their accomplishments, or putting other people down, or insulting other people so that they can feel better about themselves or look better. Extremely sensitive to criticism, because that's going against their exterior,
Perception of who
which
they are.
yeah, right, exactly. They can be very both of these personality disorders have a very difficult time maintaining a relationship. Narcissists can be very moody. They need attention and flattery. They need this what's called narcissistic supply, and that's often where you get into these abusive relationships, because they need somebody, and that's usually a spouse, to provide that constantly. A lot of envy, again, going back to this, need for feeling superior, and the need for people to treat them as superior. I could go on and on. Do you think that's
Yeah. I mean, it's they're bad actors, and
Mhm.
I mean, they come in both shapes. I mean, both genders and all shapes and sizes, and and they are in it for nobody but themselves.
Yep,
They're
generally speaking.
I mean, they're trying to win at all cost. So the other person is the enemy. And more often than not, the children are just collateral damage.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and so let's kind of shift a little bit and just talk about children and what can be done from all that perspective. I am again, one of my goals in life with SplitSmart is really to solve the discovery problem on the money side, where everybody's lying about money, but more importantly, just to keep kids out of the middle. And it's just so easy with this system that we have, with the child support world that it is, that as it is. I mean, there's that financial incentive to custody. To me, contested custody is never about the best interests of the child. It's always about money, control, and or hatred of one or both of the parties.
Yeah.
And, so again, so as people start the custody and child support conversations, they typically, even good people, are typically starting from an emotional standpoint. And they're more often than they realize, they're looking at things from a self-centered standpoint. How does this work with me, versus really the child-centered standpoint. So all that just kind of a preamble of what are you telling people, whether they're in the early stages of just thinking about divorce, how can they best prepare their thoughts, where they're going to go with children and divorce.
Yeah. So that's a huge topic that trips up, even the most reasonable people who are going through divorce, because as you said, it's connected, right? In Colorado, at least, you look at the number of overnights, and you look at salaries, and you plug some numbers into a very simplistic calculator, and it spits out an amount for child support. And that's, people might start their divorce thinking like, oh, let's just keep it the way it is. And then you get to the money piece and they're like, oh, wait, hold on. I don't want to pay that. Now I want 50%, custody with my child. And it's a way of looking at child support and custody that really takes the emphasis on where the children are, where they need to be, who is really able to focus the most on the kids, regardless of whether it's 50% or 30% or who has most overnights. And I think that's part of what you're getting at in the program that you've developed. But I feel like I'm like evading the question. I'm not, but I'm also doing a lot of preambling.
Yeah, I mean, I think from your perspective, what you're telling people, not to put words in your mouth, but I mean, the first things first, you just gotta get your thoughts in mind. Figure out, what it is that you want. And yeah, I do believe that amicable couples figure this out easily enough every day on their own. And that those amicable parents, men and women, are making two very critically important and innate, and oftentimes they're not even thinking about decisions just to be able to come up with the best outcomes. The first decision that they're making is that they are separating time and money, custody and child support, to solve both more easily. Just kind of like the example you talked about earlier. They may have a 75-25 parenting plan that works great, but now the father sees that you got to pay this, he says, okay, well, I got to have 50-50. Again, that just creates that financial incentive for a fight that doesn't need to be. And the second piece is that, and so that's all about counting overnights, which is again, I understand the logic how they got there, but could not be more asinine. And then the on the money side, it's to truly distinguish between adult benefit of money and child benefit of money, to be able to, because the more you can focus on the child, the more most of us willfully embrace that responsibility. Taint it with some support or help for the ex through child support, game on.
Yeah.
Then this creates all the conflict. So, yeah, I mean, it's contested custody is about money, control, and hatred.
Yeah.
Adult parents, if they can separate time and money, figure it out easily.
Yeah, it's I see so many cases also, like I said, that come back after the divorce decree, and often it's about child support. It's about modification of child support. And sometimes you see it and it's appropriate because there's also this issue of the age of the children. Do you know what I mean? Children are going to need one thing when they're quite young. And as they get older, they're going to need different things. They're going to need different things from their parents. They're going to need different things financially. And the support might look different. From young kids to teenagers. So and you don't necessarily have to go back to court, I don't think, to have this readjusted by the court, if you're able to kind of talk through it yourselves as co-parents. But a lot of times that's not possible, and then you do come back to court and refigure out the child support piece based on the changing situations of the families. That's just an observation, but it doesn't stop once you get divorced, that conversation.
Well, and that's unfortunate, but and the reality of it is true. But I mean, because and it's just where these narcissists and borderlines really sucker us into this fight, and they sucker us into this battle because they're making it about themselves and not the children. And when we can make it about the children, then we can create these adaptable, adjustable, flexible parenting plans that accommodate the changes in life, changes in work, changes in living, changes of, we certainly know whenever a borderline or narcissist gets another girlfriend or boyfriend, child support's going, right up there, that's going to change because we got to have a change because, we got to change. And I want more money. And it's just the most asinine system that could ever be developed.
Right. And some people really fight it tooth and nail and are constantly going back to court with motions. And then sometimes people are like, you know what? I can't do this anymore, whatever, just, whatever you want. And either way is not in the best interest of the children, right?
It's not.
But neither of those situations are really reflecting what the children need the most. And this is a place also where you get people coming in as parent evaluators, and you might have to have a PRE in, or a decision maker, because the parents cannot just can't figure it out on their own, and it escalates regardless of what the court has said or what they have in their divorce decree or their parenting plan.
Yeah. I mean, to me, and I'm talking more really than I should, but again, it's the system is designed to enable the bad actors as opposed to protect the common good. Because all these motions are for self; they're not for child.
Mm-hmm.
And in this world of what's the phrase of access to justice, courts in their mind say, well, if you want to file a motion, you can go file a motion.
Yep.
And that's just a ass-backwards way of thinking about it. And our courts have no accountability in the process. They enable the process.
Mm.
And they allow for this to, they'll moan and groan about high conflict divorces and handling those high conflict cases, but they fail to recognize their responsibility in managing it all.
Yeah. And I don't know how you change that. I don't know if it's possible to change it, but I think that we both are trying to look at solutions that take people out of court as much as possible. And that's not always possible because, like I said earlier, you can't control what the other party's going to do. All you can do really is kind of control the way that you react to it, and your own behaviors. And as much as you can do pre-divorce, during divorce, that help de-escalate, whether it's like changing your communication techniques, changing the way that you share documentation, changing the way that you share information, that can keep things from going up here. The more likely you are to have a more successful divorce. It's probably never going to look successful to either party. No one ever wins in divorce, really. And that's something that, like, even as a mediator, I try to help. I mean, I'm a neutral third party, right? And when I'm mediating, I'm representing both parties, unlike an attorney who's representing one or the other. But even as a mediator, I really like to try to help parties understand that neither of them are going to feel like they've won if they actually go to court and have a judgment made. It's not going to feel fair. It's never going to feel fair. If you can sort your own business out between the two of you in mediation, you're probably going to have a result that you're happier with because you've helped create it. That's my little spiel about mediation.
In black and white terms, you're talking about tens, if not hundreds of $1,000s to go to court, and $5,000 to figure it out, or less to figure it out in mediation, and in an amicable way. You're talking about emotional destruction, plus versus a path to peace, love, and equality post, and continuous conflict or peace.
Yeah. And a lot of times I find that even if somebody is really wanting to drive conflict, if you can appeal to their attachment to money, do you know what I mean? It sometimes helps people kind of like step back a little bit, because unless somebody's just really determined to win or to really stick it to the other party, regardless of how much money they're spending. But that's one of the first things that people ask me when they call is, how much is this going to cost? How much does a divorce cost? And my answer is, how long is a piece of string? Do you know what I mean? It's just really depends on the parties, the what their issues are, how now, I don't even want to use the word amicable, but willing to cooperate they are with each other, because it can be very simple, and it can be really, 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 really long and involved and complicated. And it does not have to be that way. But often it is.
Oftentimes it's just self-destruction. All right, Liz, well, we're going to have to kind of wrap it up. So this is, real quickly, Liz Merrill with open space mediation in Fort Collins, Colorado. She covers all the state of Colorado, as well as imagine she might do some divorce coaching outside. But Liz, give your contact information if you would.
Sure. So you can reach me easily through my website, which is openspacemediation.com. You can email me very easily. You can email openspacemediation@gmail.com or liz@openspacemediation.com. You can also call me at 970-818-2209. And I'm on all the regular social media channels, so it's not hard to find me.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, Liz, thanks so much for being here. I really do appreciate this. I mean, we'll have more shows on these bad actors. These, again, I'm on TV, so I can't use the language that I would normally use for both of them. But people need to, when they're starting the divorce process, need to think about it. Is this going to be easy or hard? And the one way to make it easier, regardless of how difficult it may be, is to start to get yourself organized. That is the foundation of SplitSmart. You can find it at SplitSmart.com, www.splitsmart.com. And it is a divorce organizational tool to be able to get your financials organized, and to organize the parenting plans and child support in a way that sets the family up for a peaceful co-parenting future where the children can thrive in the love and support of both parents. Anyway, we certainly, again, thank you for being here. Join us next Tuesday, July 27th at 11 a.m. Eastern for our next show with guest Mike Mastrossi, a Maryland divorce attorney. Remember, folks, split informed and split smart. Bye now.
Bye.